Hey everybody, welcome back to the Verdigris Table. I'm Ryan Doyle and I use Reddit. I know we're not supposed to admit that out loud in real life, but I love Reddit and there are a lot of great D&D communities on there. One is actually dedicated to running the adventure from the Dungeons & Dragons starter set. So I went down to r/LMoP and asked people to share what they wished they knew when they first sat down to run Lost Mine of Phandelver. I got some great responses and today I'm going to share them with you in this sort of bonus episode so you can get some different perspectives on being the dungeon master and creating a great experience for your players. I want to thank everyone who participated, and I'm putting a link to r/LMOP in the description. It is an excellent place to visit to find all sorts of cool resources or get answers to questions or just share your experiences. Now, let's dive in. If you're not familiar with Reddit, it's very small d democratic, as in people vote on threads and responses. So the top comment for this was actually something I did not discuss at all in this series so far. I wish I had something to help when the players said, let's go to Neverwinter. This guide, not mine, is great, and I'm going to put that link down below in the description. I actually had forgotten about it, but the first time I ran this, I was very concerned about the player characters heading for Neverwinter, just sitting there on the map calling to them. And I actually spent a lot of time going through the Forgotten Realms wiki and reading up on lore from older editions and even the D&D video games. I rolled on the magic table in the DMG to have a few things the players could buy if they actually made it there. I did a lot of homework, but I never really felt prepared to run the city as a new dungeon master, and I was thankful that my players never went in that direction. It was stressful, and maybe I blocked it out of my mind, and that was a while ago, and this wonderful guide did not exist back then, but I am sure finding it would have made me feel way more confident. There's a ton of useful information in here, and it's an amazing free resource that is good to have squirreled away if the players head for Neverwinter, or you just need to populate any location with a couple taverns and shops, complete with offerings and prices. There's even a nice little adventure in here, though it's balanced for level 5. I don't think I would actively steer my players towards Neverwinter if I wanted them engaged in this story, but if they do head for Neverwinter, maybe throw an encounter or two at them on the way there to buy yourself the time to take a look at this Dungeon Master's Guide to Neverwinter by Jacob Johnston. Part of being a good Dungeon Master is being ready for anything, and that doesn't mean memorizing everything, it just means knowing where to reach, where to look when the time comes. While that got the most upvotes, the thing that got mentioned by far the most often was to give your players a reason to care about Gundren Rockseeker. If I regret something, it's probably not having the party know Gundren good enough. What I would have done differently: connect the characters' backstories directly to Gundren Rockseeker so the player characters have a good reason to care about him when he gets kidnapped. Others have said it, but I can't stress enough how important it is that your players have a reason to give a damn about Gundren. I've run this module 3 to 4 times and not one group cared a whiff for him, nor were they in a hurry to rescue him. I wish I gave the PCs a better backstory connection to Gundren. Only a DM PC I controlled knew and cared about him, which meant he wasn't exactly a high priority to rescue. If I run it again, I'd make sure that all the PCs have a past connection to him. Now, I stressed this pretty hard in the first installment of this series. Gundren is the glue that holds this story together, and it's very easy to miss that, as the book doesn't really give us much emphasis on the point. We need to do our best in the very beginning to build that connection and motivation for the player characters and for the players, the actual people sitting around your table, as best we can. A quick note on that last one: a DMPC is basically an NPC that is in the party. It can be a great tool, and it can go very wrong. I talked to this commenter about it, and it sounds like it went very well for their game, but they agree they might use the sidekick rules if they were to do it again. The danger in running a full-fledged player character as the Dungeon Master is that it is very easy to outshine the other players narratively and mechanically, even by accident. This is a topic that is probably deserving of its own video, I think, but we talked about these ideas a bit as we discussed the possibility that Sildar joins the group, at least for a stretch, in the Cragmaw hideout. But back to Gundren. Check out this comment. I'd like to add that I absolutely did not have the experience that the other commenters here did, where players didn't feel connected to Gundren. I had a session 0 where we made sure all the characters had a believable reason they would be in Neverwinter, available to be hired by Gundren, and how, if at all, they might know one another. Once that background work was done in session 0, I just ran session 1 by the book, starting out on the road together, already on the mission. My favorite thing about Lost Mine of Phandelver is how quickly it gets you into the action. I love this one because they're talking about how they, the Dungeon Master and the players collectively, came up with these reasons to connect the PCs to each other and to Gundren together. It can often feel like the Dungeon Master has to do all the work here, but the players also have minds and plenty to contribute, and there's more of them than there are of us, so do not be afraid to enlist their help to make your game great. We talked about this in the first video, but it's nice to see it put so succinctly. Plus, it turns a potential weakness, right, starting on the Triboar Trail instead of with Gundren, into an asset. This adventure starts with a bang. Here's one more take. Run an intro quest with Gundren and Neverwinter to establish party ties to him and level them up prior to Goblin Arrows and Cragmaw Hideout. This suggestion intrigued me, and I think it provides quite a few benefits, actually. Experienced or new but ambitious dungeon masters could cook up a little adventure to establish that Gundren connection, and my mind went to something like a tutorial level almost, where we use a bunch of different skills. Negotiate for equipment, athletics check to load the cart, dexterity saving throw when we drop something inevitably, animal handling to direct the team of oxen, etc., etc. Maybe throw a little combat in there too with some dangerous beast or some thieving bandits. Give the players some time to learn the game mechanics before the potentially dangerous Goblin Arrow encounters. I believe that is the point this comment is making of getting the players leveled up before they get sent out. I gave some advice on how to throttle the danger in the video on part 1, but sending the player characters in at 2nd level is a popular choice as well. Another commenter gave an additional option that I think is pretty solid. Give the characters access to one use of the aid spell, a scroll or a charm, to use in Cragmaw Hideout. Clarg can be a killer, and those 5 extra hit points can save the day. Aid is definitely a good fit here because it doesn't provide temporary hit points. It actually increases the hit point maximum, meaning that these hit points can be replenished as well. I might have Gundren entrust some single-use magic item powerful enough to hit the whole party if you have more than 3 player characters. With an 8-hour duration, it also has the potential to incentivize the players to take a short rest before they consider taking a long one. The second most frequent subject that came up in the comments was similar to tying your PCs to Gundren, and that was getting them invested in the town of Phandalin. We discussed that in the first video, and it seemed so important to me that Phandalin ended up getting its own video entirely because it ran so much longer than I thought it would. I think we Dungeon Masters, especially when we're just starting out, put so much focus on the combat side of the game, and it makes sense. That's where the action is, right? And that's where most of these rules that we are trying to learn are going to get applied. Plus, it's where player characters can get killed. But listen to this. Take the time to flesh out and get the players attached to Phandalin. It'll make the Red Brand threat and later threats mean something. Study up a bit on the townsfolk and their factions so you have a better understanding of the town's politics and how that can work into your party's adventure. Have downtime in Phandalin where your PCs can get to know and even build relationships with the townfolks. Do them individually between play sessions. They've got some wonderful stories here for each of their characters, and end with, the whole party's investment in the village became tremendous and no one wanted to leave when the time came. Giants raiding in Triboar needed looking into, though, because Phandalin could be next. Cool, it sounds like they were heading into Storm King's Thunder, which is what we did at my table, and I think that's an awesome option if you're looking for what comes next. We talked about fleshing the NPCs out and utilizing factions, but we did not get into downtime. That's a wonderful way to give your players a richer experience and to keep the game going outside of the confines of game night. I've experimented with different ways and had various levels of success playing like that, and this comment inspired me to lean into that aspect in my home game again, so thank you for that. Maybe there's going to be a future video on that subject. One more quick one on Phandalin. I wish I knew that a lot of the different places your players would like to explore in town have no maps. Aside from the large town map, none of the places in the town have any maps. Now, at many tables, putting a map out generates this like Pavlovian response that gets everybody salivating for combat. But a lot of folks, especially playing online like this commenter told me they were in a further discussion, find that visual aids help bring everybody together. Reddit is actually a great place to find maps, as is just a simple Google image search. And it's very good to have a few generic maps of buildings handy as a dungeon master. A house, a tavern, a shop, just because you never know what you might need when you might need one. I'll often use art as well to give everybody an image without encouraging the violence, right? Though you got to be ready for that as well. This next comment is not specific to Phandalin, but feels related to running non-player characters. Make some additional NPCs that the group might care about. I had a bad guy minion who wanted to quit and had sort of a Bill and Ted vibe, and the group loved it. He made appearances and references throughout the rest of the adventure. My other group never really cared about the NPCs who were pre-built in the game. Anything you can do to get the players to care about an NPC is great. Don't be afraid to throw in references to draw them in. You can customize anyone in any adventure to suit your table, but it does sometimes seem easier when you start from scratch. And you never know when your players might get attached, so be ready to lean in when they do and to provide a name. However random that character may have been, now they're a star, baby. I don't know how often I said it, maybe even every video in this series, but any opportunity you have to make a recurring character is Dungeon Master Gold. Another thing that came up frequently is Thundertree. In this series, I gave advice on running it, but I also suggested you consider cutting it. I'm glad I removed a few quests like Wyvern Tour and Thundertree. Too much headache. Ditch the dragon. It is much more fun and thematic to replace it with a shambling mound. Now this is an interesting idea. A shambling mound makes sense with the twig blights, and I could see making a connection with the ash zombies as well. It's a difficult challenge for sure, but a lot less likely to wipe out the party or to overshadow the black spider and the rest of the plot. If you go this way, I would put that magical weapon Hue at the start of Thundertree, or at least before the Shambling Mound, so the players get to use it effectively, right, before they stop fighting plant monsters. Here's a different take. Before I ran or even purchased Lost Mind of Phandelver, I wish I knew that the image on the front cover, which set my expectations and those of my players, had such little relevance to the main storyline and presented an obscure moment in a sidetrack rather than depict the core antagonist of the adventure. The majority of the rework I've made to the module has been focused on rectifying this, in my view, critical discrepancy in the product's design. I had a nice conversation with this commenter, and it turns out he actually ran this adventure for his kids. It can be a great exercise to look at Dungeons & Dragons, and anything, really, through the eyes of a child to get a new perspective on things. We talked about how the dragon wasn't very relevant to the rest of the story in this series, but this dad DM took matters into his own hands and reorganized things. I'm not going to read all of this out loud, but here's how he did it. For the curious, you can pause and read or go check it out on Reddit. I say this a lot. This is your world. This is your story. Don't be afraid to change things up and make it your own. Check out this comment. I said it in your other thread, but I'll say it again here. The realization that you don't have to stick to the story exactly. The fact that you can add homebrew, DOIP, or third-party modules to the story, or change, or even remove parts and improve the experience of your players. That is great advice. DOIP is the Dragon of Icespire Peak, the adventure from the Essentials kit. I have this pet theory that Wizards of the Coast made the starter set, realized that Venomfang and Thundertree kind of outshined the rest of Lost Mine of Phandelver, so they made a new adventure where the dragon was actually the big bad at the end. The cool thing is that this adventure is also centered around Phandalin as well, so it's a fitting sequel or a great thing to pull content from. Dragon of Icespire Peak has some fun little side quests and dungeons in the area, as well as a full-scale follow-on. The only thing I wish I knew when I started running Lost Mines of Phandelver was that the Essentials Kit existed. LMoP is better written adventure, but the Essentials Kit is a better box of stuff and has sequel material available all the way through level 12. I was already a couple sessions into LMoP when I got annoyed that I didn't have a DM screen and went to the bookstore to find one. There, the Essentials Kit had not only a screen, but a map of Phandalin, the very place my players were exploring. I started immediately working in material from DOIP, but it would have been a bit more seamless if I had tried to integrate the two from the start. Actually, I said the same thing in the unboxing videos I made for these. The Essentials kit has more to it, and the starter set has the better adventure. I'm considering actually making a series on combining the two of these, plus some other things, into a big mega sandbox adventure, which is exciting to me, but this has been an undertaking, and that would be way more. So let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in watching. Even if you don't use all of it, there are some very useful things in the Essentials kit, like the Dungeon Master screen and map that they mentioned, and you can easily insert some of the adventures into your game. And they're both very inexpensive. I have affiliate links down below in the description to both of these. Check it out, very affordable. Beyond Thundertree and pulling from the Essentials kit, the thing I think that is the most ready to be adapted and personalized in your game has got to be the Doppelgangers, and it seems that Reddit agreed with me. Actively use the Doppelgangers to interfere with and sabotage the party. Leave behind a black spider symbol at the scene of the crime so the party learns to hate them. Have lots of fun with Doppelgangers. I'm Gundren. No, I'm Gundren. You are an imposter. Or didn't we just see Sildar at the Townmaster Hall? How did he get back here to the Stonehill Inn so fast? I peppered in a few different ways to use the Doppelgangers, but it's great to see more to know how wide open your options really are. My big one would be how much my players liked the Doppelganger storyline. I did use them quite a bit, killing and replacing Harbin and the barmaid in Phandalin, and then using them to guide the players toward Dragon Barrow and Nomengard when they were on the run, but it was pretty surface level stuff. Towards the end, though, during their death scenes, I threw in some little lore drops about them being adopted kids of the Black Spider and orphans that had miserable lives and didn't really know any better than what Nezznar was teaching them. It had a major impact on the players and all the post-kill regrets, and way more motivation to kill Nezznar. I would have loved to see what they did if they had more time with that storyline. Also, make the Goblin Lufo in Cragmaw Castle a Nilbog. Thank me later. Great stuff. Nilbogs are a lot of fun. Go check them out. There's a bunch of places you could add one into this adventure. Dragon Barrow and Nomengard are from Dragon of Icespire Peak, by the way. And I love the pathos in this one. And we're getting to see that using the Doppelgangers can also give us more impact out of Nezznar. I said it in the last video in this series that, Nezznar the Black Spider is the weakest link in this chain, in my opinion. We talked about several ways to get him into the story earlier and to make his ending better, and so did Reddit. Also need some additional evilness from the big bad evil guy. I think there could be more foreshadowing and meddling that would help the final showdown be more exciting. I'm glad I've made the Black Spider active, like really active. She managed to gain the party's trust. They think she's Halia Thornton. For the big reveal, I'll have Alderleaf encounter the party and tell them she's there for her dear friend's funeral, Halia Thornton, and let the realization kick in. That last one actually made me think of combining the Doppelgangers and the Black Spider entirely. Though there's nothing saying you can't have the Black Spider, give her a disguise kit or illusory magic. And there's nothing saying that she can't be a she, right? I mentioned it early on, I think in the first episode, but it's worth reiterating. Change anything you want, including genders. There are a ton of ways to adapt this adventure, and it turns out there are other people on the internet who will help you do that as well. I would suggest a video that doesn't quite focus on Lost Mine of Phandelver, but some of the more popular / useful blogs and videos that can help enhance the campaign. This way, new Dungeon Masters realize that they don't have to play exactly as written, and it's okay to make changes to the story. Sly Flourish, Cross.Land, Matthew Perkins, Fred Wheeler's How to D&D, and stress that it's okay to mix and match changes too. Great advice. I really like Sly Flourish and the lazy Dungeon Master approach to things. It's not exactly how I run my game, but I find a lot of inspiration there. And I've seen a bit of Fred Wheeler, and he seems just like a great guy in general and is giving solid advice. But the other two were actually new to me. I'm putting links to all of them down in the description below. Check them out. In this series, I personally have held back from making sweeping changes to this adventure. First, because I think it's got good bones, right? It doesn't necessarily require those big changes. But secondly, because I sincerely believe that the changes you make for yourself will be better for your table. Plus, when the inevitable, unforeseen consequences of those changes come calling, you are going to be in a much better place to adapt when they came from your imagination in the first place. But it is great to gain inspiration from other places, and Kenji Crossland and Matthew Perkins do provide some very interesting stuff. Not all of it fits my style, and that's all right because it might fit yours. Perkins actually did get a second mention. I'm glad I brought in a physical puzzle box inspired by Matthew Perkins for the players to solve. They were astounded by it. Yeah, props are cool, and cool props are cooler. Hard to pull off on the internet, but like in person, props are great. Again, I encourage you to seek out inspiration and make all of the changes that you want to this story. I think that some of your favorite moments will come from the things that you modified, especially on the fly at the table with the players, responding to the players. One of my favorite pieces of advice from these Reddit threads touches on this very well. Be willing to go with the craziness. Some of the most memorable moments come from an off-the-wall idea that really didn't follow the book. Nothing incredibly game-breaking, and maybe a little bit of railroading required to get back to the main story, but those moments can be really fun. There's a whole MacGuffin situation happening for one of my PCs that is being used against him by another PC, and it's making for some great drama. Doesn't fit his backstory at all, but he just got obsessed with something and I let it build and build. There's another gem at the end here. It's okay to make mistakes. Your players will probably never know, to be honest, and it's better if you never even tell them. That's great. We did a whole talk on how perfectionism, this idea that we can't screw up, can lock up, especially aspiring dungeon masters. Go check that out if you're feeling that way. You have to give yourself the room to make mistakes. And it's true, the players usually won't have any idea. And it's wonderful that we can take Dungeons and Dragons so seriously, but we have to remind ourselves sometimes that it's just a game. So get out there, have fun, be kind to yourself, be kind to each other. Thanks to everyone over at r/LMoP, and thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.